Okay guys, today I'm going to tell you how a virus replicates and how a virus works. But first I'm going to tell you the difference between a bacteria and a viral infection. Okay, so bacterial infections have already been cured, okay, using antibiotics. Okay, and a bacteria is very easy to understand. It's easy to cure because bacteria is alive. Okay, and they reproduce by something called binary fission. Okay, they're very small organisms that have their own protein making machinery. They have their own DNA. Okay, so every single bacterium has the capability of replicating on its own. Okay, so this is a process called binary fission. Now, as I said before, modern science has cured bacterial infections using antibiotics, such as penicillin. Some of the worst bacterial infections that have been known have been the plagues of medieval Europe and the Middle East. Okay, and those are the bubonic plague. There were several of them. Some that are still around today are cholera, salmonella. Okay, these have both been cured by antibiotics. Or can be cured by antibiotics. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're not serious. They're very serious. Many bacterial infections are actually deadly. Now, a viral infection is something very different. Some scientists will say that viruses are alive, some won't. But the point is that they cannot survive on their own. They need your cell or a cell, and they need to hijack that protein making machinery. Okay, so all a virus is a little protein coat. They're much smaller than bacterium. Got a little protein coat, and inside there they have a strand of RNA or they have a strand of DNA. Now, in and of themselves, this virus particle cannot do anything. It needs a cell to hijack the protein making machinery of. Okay, some of the most well-known viruses in history have been let's see, smallpox, which was enormously devastating, killed millions and millions of people. HIV, and the virus that's caused by HIV, which is AIDS. Ebola, polio, influenza, which is the flu, and MERS, SARS, and the virus that we're currently dealing with, which is COVID-19. These are all coronaviruses. Okay. Now, viruses cannot be cured with medicine. They can instead be prevented with vaccines, through artificial vaccines, which something called antibodies are introduced to the body, and then the cells of the body can actually recognize the viral RNA and therefore can prevent it, or the body can produce its own antibodies and resolve it on its own. Okay, this is called natural immunity. And then there's other viruses like HIV, Ebola, and every single coronavirus, or I'm sorry, MERS, SARS, and COVID-19, which unfortunately we do not have a vaccine for. neither, and also HIV/AIDS cannot be resolved on its own. So your body cannot make its own antibodies. Neither, or in Ebola, there are some exceptions of people who do survive, but the margin is very narrow. Okay, so this is how a virus replicates. We're going to take a trip back to RNA transcription and translation. As you remember, inside of all of your cells, you have your genome. The DNA double helix opens up, and then transcription allows for the RNA strand to get built. Okay, this is a natural protein making mechanism of your body. Remember, A goes with U is a RNA base, T goes with A, C goes with G, C, C, G, and so on and so forth. Okay, remember anticodons, those are the triplets that read the RNA base and then translate it into an amino acid. So these are all amino acids. And then they build a protein. This is how we live. There's natural protein making machinery inside of cell organelles called ribosomes. They build that protein. That's what keeps us alive, translates our DNA into protein. Okay, so what a virus does, okay, a virus goes in to a nice healthy cell in your body. So there's your nucleus, there's the cell membrane, the ribosomes, okay, mitochondria. Okay, so what a virus does, remember, a virus is just a protein coat with a strand of DNA or RNA inside. Okay, so in and of itself, the virus really is inert. It doesn't do anything unless it has a cell to infect. Okay, so the virus has its own genome. Okay, so remember, on the outside of a virus, it has a very unique protein coat. Think about this like a key. The key to your house can only unlock the key to your house. It's because it's super unique to that keyhole. Okay, so when this particular virus, let's call this H1N1, which is a strand of influenza, when this comes into contact with the cell that it's designed to hit, it unlocks the keys to the cell membrane. And then once it gets inside of your cell is going to do what it knows best, and it's going to make protein. Okay, except the viruses, sometimes viruses have evil intentions. Okay, they go to that ribosome. Okay, and what does the ribosome do when it gets a strand of RNA? It starts cranking out amino acids, starts making protein. So now the virus is in service to, the cell is now in service to the virus. Okay, and it doesn't even know it. So what happens now? The cell is a slave to the virus, oftentimes killing the cell, and the viruses leave the cell, except much more abundant. Now, these keys that I was talking about are different with every single virus. They attack certain types of cells. For example, HIV attacks a cell called a T cell. Okay, and the type of cell that the virus attacks corresponds with the keys on its membrane, on its protein coat, just like the keys on the coat of the cell. And that's what the symptoms are going to show, what kind of cell was hit by that particular virus. Okay, so remember, the keys on the outside correspond with the keys on the outside of the cell. They go in and they start cranking out the protein coat, and it starts cranking out the genome of the actual virus until the virus takes over the cell, oftentimes killing it and then spreading it to other cells to do the exact same thing. Okay, these are all viruses work this way, guys. They're very different than bacteria. whereas a bacteria is not alive. I'm sorry, a bacteria is alive, and it reproduces. It has its own protein making machinery, and it doubles from the actual, because it's a living organism, whereas a strand of RNA or DNA needs a host cell to hijack the protein making machinery of. Okay, this is Viruses, guys. Thanks.